Hi, it's Gab and Dad here.
Hi.
Dad's back.
I'm
Hi.
back.
And today we'll be reviewing the new film Crazy Heart.
Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges.
With Jeff Bridges. A small film, but getting lots of attention, mostly with Jeff Bridges' performance. And in this award season, and a lot of
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Gyllenhaal, yeah.
And Robert Duvall.
Yep. Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
Why don't you tell them what it's about?
Well, there's not a whole lot to tell. Jeff Bridges, who plays the central character, a man called Bad Blake, is a kind of washed-up country and western singer.
Not kind of washed up.
Yeah, washed up. He's also a drunk, which is understandable in the modern world. He chain smokes. He eats rotten food. He lives
peas in a jug.
Peas in a jug. He has emphysema. And I would have said, on the whole, not a whole lot of talent, although we can discuss that. So he's kind of just a wreck, both professionally and personally. He drives a beaten-up old car along Bessie along picturesque country roads, plays in pool halls and small bars and places where some die-hard country and western fans still remember him. So it's really about him. He has a romance with a much younger, pretty reporter who comes to interview him. And that's about it. Not a whole lot happens after.
Yeah, it's this window in this guy's life, the majority of the story.
There's not a lot of plot in this film. And what plot there is sort of trite, I would say, cliche.
So we're getting into the critical part?
No, I'm still just summarizing. So I'll stop there and I'll stop there. I need a drink. I'll stop there and let you take over.
Yeah, I guess I'll take the wheel now. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a character study of this person. So plot is secondary to just sort of being on this ride, this rocky road with this guy.
Very much like The Wrestler with Mickey O'Rourke, I would have said.
Yeah, I mean,
there's plot structure, general idea.
Definitely parallels to the story and the kind of character that we're following. But as I said to you before this video, differing to The Wrestlers, there never feels to be any great gravitas in this story. There's not much that happens. I would say more happens in The Wrestler, and there feels like there's more stakes in a story such as The Wrestler for the character than I felt for this guy. I mean, there's stakes because he's basically a failure. He has certain failings of character and of health and of career, etc., etc.
Doesn't look after himself.
But on the whole,
but the proverbial heart of gold.
Of course, he has a heart of gold, and he's supposed to have be talented. You might disagree with that, but it's definitely suggested that he's a waste of talent, and that's a certain kind of tragedy. But it's a cliched Hollywood tragedy, you know.
I know.
Failed potential.
Need another drink.
So in terms of addressing what you say about cliche, I mean, this is sort of a story that we've seen before. It's just dressed up a little bit differently. In the guise of Jeff Bridges, who does do a very nice performance.
Yes, it's a very competent acting role, but I just sort of feel he didn't have a whole lot to work with. He had a kind of rather cliched character to work with, and not a whole lot of plot. I mean, the plot's not going to carry you along. I actually found the movie kind of boring. There
aren't really peaks and valleys, I have to agree. As I said to you, it's not a showboat performance, which I like the fact that it's getting attention because it's not one of those bravura performances that usually the award season eats up. It's a much more naturalistic performance, and so I appreciate that. I don't want to criticize it for not being sort of a show-stopping story.
Did you find it kind of
but it was a little bit
there's no plot to speak of, and as good as competent, I would use the word competent as Jeff Bridges is in the role, it's not enough. It's not enough to really grab the viewer, make you really interested in this movie. As I say, I found it kind of boring.
I would go beyond competent. I think that he wore this character like a glove. I think it was a very realized, natural performance, and I have to give a lot of credit to that. But I think the story, the plot, the script does fail it a little bit. So those two don't quite meet to deliver something that's really not very memorable. I'm not going to remember this. I still think about The Wrestler, and I don't think I'll be thinking about this.
The Wrestler is a far superior film, I think.
I think so in many ways. And, to touch on the story, there's certain things that we actually found quite unbelievable for an otherwise very sort of natural kind of story
Well,
performance.
the romance between the Maggie
I gotta
Gyllenhaal,
say,
I can't pronounce it.
Gyllenhaal.
The romance between the Maggie Gyllenhaal character and the Jeff
believable.
Bridges character. I mean, Jeff Bridges' character, Bad Blake, is 57 years old. He's a wreck of a man. He has no professional life to speak of. He's abused his body and it shows. And up pops Maggie Gyllenhaal,
All
who's
lithe
and fresh and pretty and way younger, and she falls in love with him. I mean, give me a break on that, unbelievable. I mean, I say, come on.
But it's kind of an only in the movies kind of relationship, and it's
yeah.
it's not that it couldn't be believable, but they don't develop it. They don't show you how it could be believable. No. It happens at the drop of a hat.
It's believable that he lusts after her. That's perfectly
That
believable.
is very believable.
But she after him, I don't think so.
And the other thing that sort of happens at the drop of a hat is, I don't think it's a spoiler, he has alcoholism, and at one point he goes to rehab and sort of seemingly is sort of rehabilitated overnight, and we all know that doesn't.
I resent that.
I resemble that remark. So I mean, there's those touches where it's hard to let that go because it's supposed to be an otherwise very sort of true feeling story, and those are eye roller touches.
But you know what I really liked? The best part of the movie for me was Robert Duvall. He has a small role, but
Robert Duvall.
But the master, right? He was so good in that role. Very small, but really good.
Yeah. And the music, I'm not a country music fan, but there were a couple toe tappers. That I appreciated the music, and I appreciated Jeff Bridges' performance as an actor, not a professional musician, of the music.
He has nothing to be ashamed of, Jeff Bridges, in this film.
I'm sure he'd appreciate you saying
nothing to be ashamed of. B+, but not Oscar material in my opinion. Although there's again buzz about it.
It looks like he's sort of the one to beat. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I would say try to go see this and see what you think for yourself. If you're not following the Oscars with bated breath, then maybe rent it if you're interested in the genre or the music.
Yeah, I wouldn't rush out to see it.
I wouldn't rush.
There you go, folks. Thank you. I'm glad to be back, and I'm looking forward to the Oscars and Gab and Dad's special Oscar preview, which will be maybe a week before?
Yeah, we're going to definitely be trying to see nominated films, follow all that for you.
This is going to be a big thing, so watch for it. Watch for it.
Big. Bye.
Goodbye.